Hello, my name is Morgan Prygrocki. I'm part of our Pro Video team based in Los Angeles, and joining me today we have Page Marsella, who was recently nominated for Best Documentary with the Alabama Solution.
If you're an inmate in Alabama prison, you're probably praying every night that nothing bad happens to you. It's dangerous and volatile. It could explode at any moment.
Well, first things first, huge congratulations on the Alabama Solutions nomination for Best Documentary. This amount of footage and these types of really hard interviews is certainly something that requires a lot of craft. What initially drew you to editing? How did you get here?
I was initially drawn to editing. I was lucky enough in high school to have a film elective, and we were given as one of our first assignments VHS tapes with footage from a TV show that I had never heard of called Gunsmoke. It was like an old Western black and white show. I believe it was a full episode, and we were told to take that footage and cut it up and make something new with it. And that in itself kind of blew my mind, the thought that there is someone that's sitting and cutting a story together with the footage. I think, at that age, I had never really thought about that and what the process was.
Let's get into this. How did you initially get involved with this project?
I had just come off of a really heavy project called Stolen Youth. An amazing producer on that project, Andrew Helms, was working on the Alabama Solution. They had been working with editors for a couple years and just not really finding the story or able to really, take this massive subject and find a way to create something that was easily digestible to people, as easily digestible as it can be made. I didn't know everything that was going to entail working on a project like this, but I knew that I really wanted to work with Charlotte Kaufman and Andrew Jarecki, and I knew, based on the way that they spoke about how moved they were by everything that they had been witness to so far, that I wanted to give it a shot and see if I could help them in any way. And so I joined the project.
Are you typically cutting on Premiere? Is there a reason why you specifically chose Premiere for this project?
I love Premiere, and the past few projects have been on Premiere. I think that it is a really common documentary choice because I think Premiere makes it really easy to just create something and start loading right away and start looking at your footage right away and throwing things into a timeline. And I think that that is really valuable to directors and producers who are starting projects but not really sure where it might lead them or how long they might be on a project. I just think that it's a really user-friendly interface.
Especially when I would imagine you were probably getting more footage throughout the course of editorial. Is that right?
Yeah, there was a lot that they were still amassing just because they never knew where the story was going to go. When I first joined, I was able to have, I think, 2 weeks to just kind of look at footage as much as I could and start to wrap my head around it. And then we, would have these very long Zooms where I would come back to them with what I was responding to or what I felt like we might want to get more information on or what I felt wasn't necessarily important.
Watching this, there's a lot to digest here, and I really think you hit the nail on the head. Were there other elements that you had to leave on the cutting room floor that you wanted to dive into, but just ultimately decided on this approach?
Charlotte and Andrew really went into it with an open mind about what this was going to be. And so when they started, I think they just kind of investigated every possible angle because this is such a huge issue. So there was just, many, many hours of interviews with activists and civil rights groups and victims' rights groups and reporters and lawyers. Ultimately, there's only so much you can include. And so we always wanted the men to be the center of it. So unfortunately, so much was on the cutting room floor. I watched so many documentaries, and if it's a really dry, interview heavy, talking heads, a lot of experts, a lot of facts, I tend to tune out, and I don't think that the message is as strong as a story.
given the nature of this topic, there's so many things to consider, both from a political perspective, from a, individual perspective. What did that collaboration look like for you guys?
The collaboration was really incredible with Charlotte and Andrew. They are very hands-on. They're really good because they have such different skills. Andrew's really good at big picture and focusing on like steering the ship. And then Charlotte is very much in the edit every day. Something that Andrew is really good at the course of his career is the investigative aspect of a project. He feels strongly that in order for an audience to stay captivated with any subject, they need to be taken along on an investigative journey. And that was something that happened to naturally present itself when we received the text message from Melvin Ray for them to look into this brutal beating that had happened of Stephen Davis. And so they ultimately went to the hospital in Alabama.
We're looking for Stephen Davis.
That's also something that an audience member, is uncovering at the same time that we were, to try to get to the bottom of what happened. And then I think from that, you can then touch on some of the other issues that have to do with the mass incarceration system, drug addiction, mental illness, forced labor, guard abuse, because it's such a huge, overwhelming topic that I think unless you have a strong narrative story and strong characters for people to fall in love with and relate to like we did, it's going to be very hard for a viewer to stay interested and to take anything away from the message that we're trying to show. Unless you can connect to the humanity of people and the story of someone's struggle, you're not going to really clue into any of the other pieces of information that we want to also convey about this huge issue.
So I want to pivot over to some of your post-process on this film. What made it creatively exciting and challenging for you as an editor?
It was a challenge when I first joined because Andrew and Charlotte had some concern that it would be really a struggle for people to watch a film, that a large percentage of it is cell phone footage. So when I joined, it was really important that I stress to them, this is compelling, these men are brilliant, people will be glued to this footage. It really was able to put them at ease. I think it's one of the main jobs as an editor is to just, and you learn this, through experience. It's like you get more confident at trusting your own instinct, but you're the first audience member. And so what you feel and see and things you notice are invaluable because most of the time it is things that the director has not noticed, has not thought about. It's a new perspective. It's just a lot of conversations and really heavy, hard conversations. But, that's part of the fun of working on something with really smart, creative people and just whittling away and constantly rewatching footage and just trying to get to the heart of what you want people to learn from whatever it is you're doing.
I always like to end on what advice you would like to give aspiring editors or filmmakers who want to do what you want to do. It sounds like we've already got one tip. What other tips do we have?
It's a tip that I always say because I myself have to constantly remind myself of this because I have found that even ideas that are completely left field that maybe don't work will lead you to something else that does, or even if it's just one shot that you hadn't considered that blows open a scene for you. So I think you want to constantly be open no matter what stage you're at to really go down every path that is presented and not to immediately shoot something down because you might not have a home for it right away. It is an organic, breathing thing. I know that sounds so like woo-woo, but I truly believe that, especially with a documentary. It could lead you in so many directions that you never thought about. So you really want to be open to every idea.